Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. Hello, hello, hola, buenas tardes. Good afternoon. I'll let folks trickle in here for a little bit. Um, First of all, thank you all for joining us today. My name is Jonathan Ayala, and I am the Associate Manager for NMEX Treatment Division. And in case you're wondering if you're in the right room, this is our webinar called People Living with HIV Building Collective Power. And I am super excited about this webinar. It's part of our 50 plus strong and healthy program, which supports and trains people living with HIV on how to advocate for themselves and their communities. So I'm really excited about this webinar today because we will get to hear from some of the leaders of the most impactful networks of people living with HIV in the movement today. So super happy for you all to carve out some time in your day to be able to join us, and also to our esteemed panel for being able to join us today as well. So I'm going to briefly introduce our guests. Hi, Tammy. I know it was a little bit of technical difficulty. Glad to see you. So I'm going to briefly introduce our wonderful guests, and then we will just jump into some questions that we prepared. And then if you have questions throughout the event for our panelists, please feel free to put them into the chat or the question box, and we will get to those with some plenty of time. So first up, we have Marnina Miller, who is the co-executive director of Positive Women's Network, which is a national membership body of women living with HIV and their allies that exists to strengthen the strategic power of all women living with HIV in the United States. Thank you and welcome, Marnina, and congratulations on your role. Um, Next, we have Tammy Hout. I hope I said your last name correctly, but please correct me if I'm wrong. And she is the co-executive director of the Zero Project, which is focused on ending inappropriate criminal prosecutions of people living with HIV, including for non-disclosure of HIV status, potential or perceived HIV exposure or HIV transmission, and on building and supporting people living with HIV networks through, among other activities, the Network Empowerment Project. So welcome, Tammy. Next, we have Cecilia Dennis, who is the chair of the National HIV and Aging Advocacy Network, or NAN, which is a grassroots network of individuals advocating for the collective and cumulative interests of people aging with HIV. NAN envisions a world in which all people thrive as they age with HIV, physically, socially, financially, spiritually, emotionally, and in all aspects of life. So welcome, Cecilia. And then finally, we have Ronald Johnson, who is the chair of the U.S. People Living with HIV Caucus, which was founded in 2010 to ensure effective input by people living with HIV in the National HIV/AIDS strategy. Today, as a coalition anchored by the six largest networks of people living with HIV in the United States, they represent an estimated 1.2 million people who are in the US who are living with HIV, as they advocate for human rights and dignity for people living with HIV and provide leadership development and technical assistance to HIV service organizations as well as leaders living with HIV. So welcome, Ron, and thank you all so much for being here. So we'll just go ahead and get right to it. My first question, I hope everybody will have a chance to answer. And we're going to start kind of just big picture, a little broad. And that's why are networks still so important to the overall aim of advancing policy goals for people living with HIV? So in other words, why are membership-based networks important in your view? And if anybody wants to jump in, otherwise we can volunteer somebody. But why are membership networks important in your view?
I can start us off, Jonathan. People living with HIV often face intersecting challenges related to race, gender, socioeconomic status, and so many different other factors. Networks like PWN, People Living with HIV Caucus, NAN, and also CERO are extremely important because they address these intersectional issues from a policy lens. And talk about they really talk about the diverse needs of people living with HIV. These networks are indispensable to the advancement of the policy goals for people living with HIV. They provide a really powerful collective voice to ensure representation, also inclusivity. They also help combat stigma and support resilience and have a shared knowledge. And we really monitor policy implementation and really help to sustain the advocacy movement. We can't have a movement of the HIV networks without people living with HIV. We cannot do the work that we do without making sure that people living with HIV are at the forefront of this movement. And so it's extremely important to continue to support these movements and help strengthen these networks. We can achieve more effective and also equitable policies if folks living with HIV are at the forefront of these decision making powers.
Love that. Thank you, Marnina. So a lot of what I heard in there too was also, Ronald, something you all are very foundational, or excuse me, that your network is founded upon, which is that meaningful involvement of people living with HIV. In your view, why are our membership networks still so important in the HIV movement today? And you're on mute, Ronald.
Thank you, Jonathan. I think they're still very important because networks are a vehicle for, first of all, connecting people living with HIV, being able to organize a conduit for keeping people living with HIV informed and about the issues, and a forum for developing the kinds of policies that Marina Marina talked about, and just being that ability to take our individual stories and melding them into a collective voice, and giving an opportunity for us to be seen and to be heard. And that's really the essence of the meaningful involvement, that we are seen, we are heard, and that we have developed those messages. We have developed the policy options around which we advocate.
Thank you, Ronald. I love that. I heard using individual stories and perspectives to build on one another, to kind of create a chorus, if you will, of and to be able to design those policy needs and asks. Tammy, I know your organization, Zero, does a lot of work training advocates in the individual level, the grassroots level, and locally. In your view, why are membership networks still so important?
One, because you said it, nothing about us without us, which also ties into MIPA. But through the networks, we can determine our own agenda, define our own priorities, because if we're not doing it, it is defined by others, who I often call AIDS Inc. And sometimes their priorities are not the same as ours as people living with HIV. We also need to select our own leadership, and then be able to hold leadership accountable. But I think one of the most important things, and with the caucus being a network of networks, is speaking with one voice. And we are so powerful when we are working together.
I love that. Thank you. And yeah, right. And I know Zero Project and PWN, if I'm not mistaken, right? You all are part of the caucus, right? Right.
Yes.
Um, so great. There's a lot of overlap here, which is going to be wonderful for the combo. Cecilia, I know your network, NAN, is probably one of the younger networks here in terms of length of time being around. But in your view, as a leader, a founding member of NAN, and now the chair of the network, why are membership networks still really important? To your work.
Yes, I feel like networks play a crucial role in advancing policy and goals for people living with HIV. Some of the key reasons are people living with HIV, along with their allies, are instrumental in raising awareness related to issues that we have. Uh, they can effectively advocate for changes by drawing attention to specific needs and challenges faced by people living with HIV. And these networks can organize campaigns, engage with media, and mobilize community to support influence policymakers. They're also effective in advancing policy, often requires collaboration among stakeholders. So, no one can do it alone. So being able to collaborate with other stakeholders, including healthcare providers, government agencies, community groups, networks facilitate the coordination of efforts, and it ensures the actions are aligned and resources are used effectively. And that's just some of the reasons. I could go on.
Thank you, Cecilia. So let's get into a little bit more specifically, perhaps, about each of your networks. I know everybody sort of has a slightly different approach or different, perhaps community you're working with. And I would love to kind of dig in a little bit more into the specific work that your network does. So my next question for Marnina. PWN has chapters all around the country in places like Colorado, Alabama, Louisiana, South Carolina, just to name a few, as well as Texas, Houston, and Dallas. What are some ways that PWN helps to support their chapters across the country? And then how does that inform sort of the national level strategy and policy that PWN USA takes on?
Oh, that's a really big question. PWN has over 3,000 active members. Not only do we have those chapters that you just listed, but we also have chapter leaders that are, which we call our chapter leads, that are in North Carolina, Oregon, Missouri, Virginia, Nevada, Tennessee, Mississippi, Maryland, and also California, Indiana. And in those states without a chapter lead or regional chapter, we also have members at large. So there is an active PWN member in almost every state of the union but Alaska. So if y'all know folks in Alaska, make sure you are connecting them with PWN. As the only national organization in the US that places like a gender justice lens on the HIV epidemic, we are really founded and ran by our members. Kiva and I, my co-executive director, that my partner that works alongside me, we're both women who are openly living with HIV, and so we are truly member-led, and we make sure that our members are a part of every level of decision making. They tell us what's important, and so we create our policy agenda and our policy priorities to match the specific needs of women living with HIV. So we provide regional trainings, capacity building to our members to make sure that we're creating a leadership pipeline, because we want to make sure the information that we know that they know. We also offer a policy fellowship that is open to all women living with HIV. And we make sure that these trainings are free and open to the public through our social media streams. We also help our members attend conferences and conduct webinars to help them with abstracts and scholarships so that they can network and gain additional knowledge. And we also have a policy specialist on staff at PWN that is designed to be involved in multiple states, to make sure that we are watching bills, make sure that folks have access to someone who can really break down that policy and let them know what is going on in their particular states. We also help our members coalition build around decriminalization and a lot of other issue-based organizing like harm reduction. And we offer assistance to help them meet with legislators, state and local officials, to help them be able to go and attend advocacy days. We also have like a supportive space for our members because we know that you can't pour from an empty cup. And so we have a supportive space for our members once a month for them to be able to hang out with other women and really build up their sisterhood. And then additionally, we offer a space called Swarm, which is just a space for Southern leaders, women living with HIV and our allies to be able to come and talk about things that are most impacting folks in the South. And so we do a plethora of things. We also have issue-based organizing, integrated voter engagement that we're extremely proud of to be a part of. And then not to mention all of those things that we also do, but we also have coalitions that we're a part of. So two coalitions we're extremely proud of are the Health Not Prisons Collective, which we're a part of that with the Zero Project, and also the People Living with HIV Caucus, where we are a member of the Anchor Networks. So we're making sure that our folks are extremely aware of what's going on around them and creating a leadership pipeline to allow other women to be a part of the decision-making processes as well.
What a wonderful balance of really grassroots oriented and a leader at the national level as well. That's you'll do a ton of work. And I will say PWN's policy newsletter that comes out every month I recommend it to everybody. I always forward it and say you should be on this list. It's fantastic. So in case you're not on it, I highly recommend it. Sign up for that. You will learn so much. And if you know anybody in Alaska, any women living with HIV in Alaska, please send them to Marnina's way so we can get 50 plus states in there, plus DC.
Yeah.
Thank you, Marnina.
Thank
Ronald, given that many of the caucus's members are networks such as Zero Project and PWN, each perhaps with its specific focus or policy area or geographic area, right? How does the caucus balance the sometimes competing needs, or are they competing needs, to determine what the caucus is going to focus on for a particular year?
Yeah, thanks, Jonathan. And I'm glad you made that a little adjustment because then I see it as not so much competing needs, but complementary needs. I see the way our organizations work, and the reason I use the word complementary is that the unique and sometimes differing needs and perspectives are blended and to become a whole set of needs and interests that is harmonious and reflects the full diversity of the epidemic. And we do this by providing forums for meetings and meetings and meetings, but enabling us to have conversations, to raise the issues, to discuss the issues, and to develop agreements on action steps. And I think we achieve a balance by listening to each other and respecting the differing perspectives, and forming relationships with each other and being intentional about finding common ground. We also work to hold ourselves accountable, and how we are reflecting and addressing the needs and concerns. So it's taking these complementary needs and perspectives and melding them into that collective voice that we strive to be.
I love that. The complementary, not competing. That's wonderful. I think that's super crucial. Cecilia, NAN is 250 plus members strong across 34 states, Puerto Rico, and DC. And you all are just a few years old in terms of the network timeline. What are some of the opportunities, and congratulations on that. What are some of the opportunities and challenges that you found in engaging individual members within your network? I know a lot of your organizing is done virtually. What are some of the challenges that you found, and also some of the pluses that you found in terms of organizing virtually?
Sure, thank you, Jonathan. Engaging a large geographical dispersed membership like NAN in virtual organizing, like you said, it presents some significant challenges and also some opportunities. Virtual organizing allows NAN to engage members in diverse locations without the need for travel, and it to make it easier for everybody's voices to be heard, no matter what their location is. This inclusivity ensures a wide range of perspectives and experiences, and make sure everybody is represented. Operating virtually also eliminates costs associated with travel and accommodations and meeting spaces and all that kind of stuff. Virtual platforms offer flexibility in scheduling with folks on the West Coast, Hawaii, and all across the nation. It makes things easier when scheduling meetings. Digital tools such as video conferencing, social media, emails, dedicated forums can facilitate continuous communication. So that's a true benefit. We are always able to be in touch and share information. Let's see. Also, utilizing digital tools such as video conferencing, social media. Like I said, the virtual platforms can amplify advocacy as well, like through coordinated campaigns, petitions, social media, that type of thing. So some of the challenges that we face are some of the benefits. Not everybody has. There's a digital divide, so not everybody has access. Sometimes there's poor connections. Sometimes folks don't know how to utilize these platforms or these tools to gain access. And again, that time zone, the different locations can provide challenges as well.
So true, right? I think during the COVID pandemic, right, we've seen so much of the great things in terms of this can be broadened to access to this meeting or webinar or whatnot. At the same time, not everybody does have that access, and also, COVID fatigue is real, right? In terms of webinars and social media events, it is real. So thank you for that, Cecilia. Tammy, can you talk a little bit about the network empowerment project at Zero? And maybe kind of adding on to that, if somebody's listening right now and they say, I want to start a network in my state of, older adults living with HIV, what are some pieces of advice that you would give to folks who perhaps are looking to start a network of their own in their area or virtually?
Thank you, Jonathan. Yeah, so the Network Empowerment Project was created to facilitate creation and strengthening of networks of people living with HIV, whether the networks are advocacy, education, recreation, or just mutual support. And Cindy Stein, Cero's development director, spent a lot of time on this and creating a toolkit to help guide creating new networks or growing the existing networks. In that toolkit, it provides ideas on how to get started, which sometimes can be one of the hardest things. How do you, like you said, start a network, which can be really challenging. And also in the toolkit are, fundraising guides, how to get a 501c3 or to apply for a 501c3. So we really hope that through that toolkit, it provides basic information to help people out. I have been a part of starting many networks. One that is like my baby is Pitch, Positive Iowans Taking Charge. We are 18 years old now. I am the only founding member still active. I don't know if that's just because of many reasons, but there are definite challenges, and especially for people living with HIV. We continue to grow and we have more opportunities now, but thank goodness for confidentiality, but it also limits, or it is a challenge to identify people living with HIV, to do the outreach to say, hey, we're here. But what really spurred the creation of Pitch was a wellness summit. So having a specific event or a goal for starting a new coalition or network is really important. So you have something that you're really working for. So we're working to continue holding this weekend retreat for Iowans living with HIV. The ASO was no longer going to host it. And so we were determined. It had such great impact the first year that I went, for me, that we wanted to make sure that that was continued. So, we had to learn how to fundraise, and we had great support from the Iowa Community Planning Group, and that, but we still, even 18 years into it, I was just at our community planning group, Ryan White community planning group, and got the surveillance report. And there are now over 3,000 Iowans living with HIV, which I know is a drop in the bucket for some people, but for Iowa, that's huge. And we haven't been able to reach out to a majority of them. However, we have built our reputation to where, and also stressed enough to the state the importance of networks of people living with HIV, and are receiving funding to do meet and greets within the state so that we are also going to where people are, to meet them where they are, because one of the huge challenges in Iowa is transportation or lack of transportation. So because we're all spread out, we have 99 counties and there's at least one person diagnosed in every county now. So it's really hard to bring people together. So the state has provided funding for us to go to ASOs so we can meet other people and let them know that we're here. We hold virtual meet and greets monthly for Iowans to get connected. So we have a specific purpose. So starting a network, you need a specific purpose. You really need that goal. And then it takes, a lot of grit, and knowing that you're going to be in it for the long haul, because it's not easy. And it's taken us 18 years to get where we are, and it hasn't always been easy, but just continuing to believe in the importance of why you started helps get you through those tough times.
18 years. That's really amazing. Congratulations to you on that. That's a tremendous amount of work. And I think it brings up you bring up a really crucial point, right? So perhaps starting the network is its own challenge, not to diminish that at all, but perhaps an equally, if not bigger challenge is sustaining it, right? How does it last? And one thing that I heard Tammy, you talk about, and I want to throw the question to the other folks as well, is like, ways to engage membership, right? So, and that could look differently depending on sort of your network or policy area. But what are some ways that you think are that you engage members within your coalition or within your membership? What are some ways that you all do that? Marnina, Cecilia, Ronald, and Tammy, if you have anything to add.
Engage. Oh, go ahead.
No,
I'll,
Ronald,
I'll
you go ahead.
We'll go Cecilia, Marnina, and then Ronald, if that's okay.
One of the ways that we engage our membership through our National HIV Aging Advocacy Network is through webinars similar to this one. We have quarterly membership meetings. Our next meeting is September 3rd, and then after that, we'll have another one on December 3rd. We have a support group that engages our membership body, and we also are working on hoping to develop a newsletter. And, we have the 50 plus Facebook page at our disposal as well. So those are just some of the ways that we use to engage our membership.
Thank you. Marnina?
So we do a monthly policy update, which you have rave reviews for, Jonathan, and I can't wait to tell the policy team about it. They're going to be so happy. We also engage folks through webinars, through trainings. We also engage folks through issue-based organizing and also integrated voter engagement. That's the way we find folks on the ground who want to get engaged with our work. That's the way we find accomplices and also find new members. And so those are some of the additional ways that we engage within our membership.
Thank you. Ronald, how do you all engage members?
Well, some of the ways that the caucus works to engage our members certainly are using webinars and organizing webinars on important topics and issues as part of one project that we are working on. We're going to be starting a webinar series around decriminalization work. So webinars are an important focus. We also, through our partnership with AIDS United on AIDS Watch and the Law Center at Harvard University, AIDS Watch becomes a very important vehicle, not only for our members, but for all people living with HIV in the United States to really have a direct role in advocating our issues in Congress. And this past AIDS Watch, more than 50% of the participants were people living with HIV. So AIDS Watch is an important part of our work and in terms of engaging. But it's an ongoing challenge for us and to really think out how we engage. Really, we have a good membership committee, and Tammy has been working on that, on those issues. So again, we see engagement as crucial. We also see it as a challenge and one that we are committed to continuing to meet that challenge to so that we are fully engaged with the members.
Thank you all for those answers. And Tammy, yeah, please.
Yeah, if I could just add, yeah, along with webinars, Sarah also has a Google group that offers an opportunity for members to talk about or to post on if a bill is being introduced or for challenges, successes, to get advice from one another. So I think the Google group is a one great way for us to communicate. Sarah also, we are lucky enough to host the Sarah Project Justice Institute, which provides a training and advocacy training opportunity, a year-long program for people living with HIV, and we are now on our third year. Really proud of that. And then I would also say, of course, HINAC, HIV is Not a Crime National Training Academy, the biannual training academy, which hopefully we will be within the next month or two be able to send out a save the date, but we'll have opportunities for people to get engaged, especially around the programming and helping us as an executive committee, which, our partner organizations are also PWN, the Caucus, and Positively Trans and Thrive SS to bring community members and the diversity within our community to host this event that really builds advocacy skills for people who are working in state coalitions to modernize their HIV specific laws.
Wonderful. Thank you for that, Tammy. I have a couple of questions, but I'm going to edit myself so we can hear from other folks who are watching as well. So just a reminder, if you have questions for our really brilliant panelists, please put them in the chat and we will get to them in just a bit. But just a couple of quick questions, hopefully. So I know you all have, many of you all have talked about sort of the policy, excuse me, the state level policy and federal sort of interchange there, right? A lot of work perhaps done state by state and federal. How do you all make those decisions? I mean, is it like what goes into sort of which state, you're going to focus on? Like, for instance, is it like, we have a lot of members, based in Pennsylvania. So a lot of work in Pennsylvania, or is it, we see that the really dangerous bills are happening in X state, so we're going to go to X state. How do you all make those decisions, and sort of what's that interplay between that federal advocating and then that sort of state by state advocating? And anybody can jump in and take that question if you'd like.
Well, for HIV specific laws, it is state by state work. These laws have to be modernized at the state level. So Sarah just provides support to states. There are over 30 with HIV specific laws. So we provide as much support as we can. However, recognizing that the leadership must be from the state. It can't come from a national organization. So we depend on the state advocates. And one of our jobs really is to ensure that people living with HIV are on those decision-making bodies, because these laws are impacting us. So people living with HIV in the state need to make those tough decisions when you're negotiating on what a bill should look like. But also on the federal level, there's the Repeal Act. So we are all supporting and trying to figure out how we can make some influence if we can get the Repeal Act that would help and support state efforts through the different things that the Repeal Act has. So it is a combination of the two that we are working on, but our priority is supporting state advocates, especially people living with HIV.
Thank you for that, Tammy. Other folks, anybody else want to jump in on that question?
Sure. Yeah, I wanted to add, NAN being a national organization, I think our advocacy is more around issues, policy. So, for instance, the Older Americans Act, it's very important to us, and we're working towards that goal. So it's not necessarily issues that are affecting any particular state, but it's more unified. It's more what affects all of us. Um, Sort of, because, what affects one of us affects all of us. So, yeah, I just wanted to jump in and add that.
Yeah, and thank you. That's a crucial point, right? Like understanding where, even I know a lot of NAN members advocate within other networks of people living with HIV that they're in for issues specifically affecting older adults living with HIV, and making that also aging and aging well an HIV issue as well, which it is. Other folks want to jump in there?
Well, I would just also, and to build on Cecilia's point about the Older Americans Act, because it does give an opportunity, and with the new regulation that this administration enacted, making older adults living with HIV fitting the definition of a population of greatest social need, and at least at the moment, requiring states to address how they will meet the needs of older adults living with HIV. So we want to see how, through our membership, we can advocate with the states to make sure that their plans, as they develop their plans, and each state has a different cycle in which they are required to do their plan. So the upcoming cycles, we want to make sure that those plans include addressing the greatest needs of people living, older adults living with HIV, and LGBTQ plus seniors.
That's a great point, right? So regardless of what happens at the federal level, it's states that usually implement it. So
Yes.
it's not either or, it's both. Absolutely great point there, Ronald. Marnina, anything to add there, or do you want me to jump to this next question?
I think they said most of it all and how we organize. But for PWN, we really think about our membership and our membership base. And so we know that we can't do a lot of integrated voter engagement without a lot of bodies or a lot of members in a particular state. And so we do integrated voter engagement in 3 different states: Texas, Pennsylvania, and also Colorado is where we have our larger bases. It's also where we have partner organizations that are also really interested in that work. And so they allow for us to be able to have additional funding to be able to do those. And so, you have to have resources in order to be able to allocate funding. And then another thing that I think is really great about that work that we do in those states is that our members are the ones that are running these campaigns. We just assist. We offer training and help, but we really allow for our members to let us know what's going on in their particular states. We do have like policy experts watching different bills coming out from different states, but for the most part, we really want to make sure that we're building up the efficacy of our leaders in those states to tell us what they want. And so that's how we do our state organizing, and then our federal organizing. We really work with our partners. So our policy partnership coalition with AIDS United, from the PPC with AIDS United to the People Living with HIV Caucus with that work as well. And then also we also collaborate with our partner networks when we are part of the Health Not Prisons Collective. And so that's how we organize federally. And so we just make sure that we're organizing with folks who have those specific needs that have the boots on the ground, that really know what's going on in their particular states, because we don't want to come into spaces and say, like, I'm from Texas, I don't know what folks in California need. And so we want to make sure that when we say MIPA, we're not just talking about people, we're not just talking about people living with HIV, but people living with HIV that are living in that particular area.
Thank you for adding that, Marnina, because you brought up something that I think I've heard everybody say is that it really has to be grassroots driven, right? Any sort of work that you all support as the sort of a larger network, it's really what do folks living with HIV in that particular area or in that particular policy arena need and want. So thank you for reminding us of that point, Marnina. I have one more question. I'm going to just ask it real quick, and anybody can jump in and answer that. Actually, yeah, if perhaps everybody will want to, but after that, we will jump to questions from the audience. So please get those in. But just for everybody here, what's like maybe one project or campaign in the next few months that you and your network is really focused on? Just one or two things that you're like, okay, this is sort of next on the docket for us.
PWN's 16th birthday is coming up, y'all. And that is a huge thing. As y'all know, women living with HIV have not always been at the forefront of this movement. Not until 1994 were women even considered a part of the definition of an AIDS diagnosis. And so I'm super excited about PWN turning 16. And so on June 18th, we'll have our 16th birthday party. It is virtual, so I'm super excited about the birthday party. Also, we have Celebrate and Honor Black Women. Black women have always been the backbone of the HIV movement, fighting for multiple communities on multiple fronts, despite being underpaid and undervalued and underserved. So Celebrate and Honor Black Women is an inaugural event that PWN puts on to make sure that we are highlighting Black women, celebrating them, and also bringing up a lot of joy around Black women living with HIV and those most impacted by the HIV epidemic. So that is going to be in September. And also in September is when we're launching our integrated voter engagement campaigns in those states, Colorado, Texas, and also PA. We hire folks to be phone bankers. You don't have to live in that particular state to be a phone banker for PWN. Also, we'll also have canvassers on the ground in those particular states. So if you are living in that state and you want to be a part of the door-to-door canvassing for the Get Out the Vote campaigns, please join us. This is an extremely important election year. It's important that we protect the rights and the interests of people living with HIV, especially with these threats legislatively that undermine our access to health care and funding, and also a lot of discrimination protections. So make sure that you are voting and making sure that we have the right information for voting. And so we want to make sure that folks are equipped when they go to the polls and that they're not receiving disinformation, because there's a lot of disinformation going on around right now. And so please check in with PWN-USA on all of our social media. We'll have all of that information listed in our bios. But yeah, come join us. Come join our campaigns.
That's wonderful. Congratulations to you all. 16 years. That's wonderful. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And what a great charge for everybody. You want to think about phone banking, canvassing, PWN is a folks to connect with on that. Other folks, campaigns or projects or anything you have coming up the next few months that you'd like to highlight?
Well, I'd like to highlight NAN, the EC committee submitted an article on HIV aging policy to the HIV Specialist magazine. So I'm not sure when, but that article should be published soon. So that's exciting. We also have several committees and special interest groups. We have our membership engagement committee who've done a fabulous job to get us up to 250 membership in, I feel like, a pretty short period of time. So I'm excited and very proud of that. Also, the trainers of training are working on our next project for training and educate the community on policy. Women of Color Rise Up, we're going to be doing some very special campaigns going forward for awareness days and things like that. We also have our Lifetime Survivors group who are becoming their very own network. So woo-hoo for them, that is really exciting. and our support group. It's always exciting for members to become able to come together and fellowship and share. So we have that, and that's growing, and we're getting a lot of great feedback on that committee. We do have some committees that we are looking for, plan committees. We're looking for folks to head that up. So Policy and Advocacy Committee, Communications Committee. Also, we have 2 special interest groups, LGBTQ special interest group we'd like to get rolling, and also heterosexual men's special interest group. We're looking for co-chairs. So those are some of the things that we've been working on, really excited about, and just looking forward to doing more.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Cecilia. Ronald, Tammy, anything you want to highlight?
Well, the caucus will continue to advocate the policies that have been outlined in our Demanding Better agenda, including the focus on quality of life and the wellness of us as whole people, decriminalizing HIV, and highlighting and continuing to educate our community and federal policymakers about the human and civil rights impact of molecular HIV surveillance. But we also really want to lift up our concern with what we see as almost an ironic shifting away from a focus on people living with HIV in federal policies. We see this in the way the ending of the epidemic is framed in many ways, and not sufficiently emphasizing the continuity of care and treatment. We see it in, quite frankly, the president's, for a second year in a row in his budget request, flat funding the core elements of the Ryan White program. And we see it most tellingly in the way the status neutral approach is being articulated. So we are going to really be reminding that the lives of people living with HIV must and be continually centered in the response to HIV. Ending the epidemic is not going to end and must not end the treatment and care that we will need for far into the future.
Super crucial points. Thank you, Ronald, for adding those. Tammy, things you want to highlight?
Yeah, well, our one of our major focuses will definitely be HYNAC, and we'll be hosting, and our partner organizations will be hosting webinars for the Road to HYNAC. We call it the Road to HYNAC, so watch out for that information. Along with, we will be reaching out to community to get input on the programming for HYNAC, and if we change the track. So this is our 6th one in 2025. So as things change, we also want to recognize that in our programming. I would also add, as the MIPA chair for the caucus work group, is I'm going to get it done. We have a survey that we are going to publish the results on MIPA, especially in Part A's. We focused on Part A's first, or lack of MIPA on Part A's. So meaningful involvement of people living with HIV, as Ronald said, is decreasing as a priority, and something that we are definitely keeping an eye on through the caucus. And so that will also be coming out, which I am excited for.
Everybody's super busy, and it's no wonder. Well, you all deserve a wonderful vacation of your choice, and I'm putting it out there in the world for you all. Taylor, any questions that we've gotten in the chat so far?
I sure do. So, question number 1. How do we get medical cannabis in the continuity of care for HIV patients with peripheral neuropathy and disease-related malnutrition?
What was the first part of the question?
How do we get medical cannabis into continuity of care for HIV patients with peripheral neuropathy and disease-related malnutrition?
And if anybody's heard of sort of campaigns or states being able to gotten that accomplished.
I don't
I
know of
have
any
not. I'm
that have
sorry.
gotten that accomplished. No, you're fine, Miss Cecilia. I don't know of any states that have gotten that accomplished. However, we do know that folks that do have medicinal marijuana, um, that have recreational marijuana, has been having a lot of advocacy around it. Like folks have really been campaigning to make sure that recreational marijuana was passed in their particular state. So what I would say is if you don't see folks already doing advocacy around it, start your own advocacy campaigns around having that access to be able to use that for peripheral neuropathy, which is for those who may not know, it's like when your nerve has been damaged due to you living with HIV. And so one thing my mentor has always stated to me was if you don't see something, create something. And so when I first started doing advocacy, I did it around a lot of younger people because I was a lot younger at the time. And so I would say start your own campaigns. If you don't see anybody out there doing it and you don't have what you need, make sure that you're advocating for those needs because you'll find folks that'll join your movement and you can create and start your own movement and you'll see folks ready to galvanize alongside you. I know there's a lot of folks in the HIV movement who would be willing to partner with you on something like that. And so I would say find your tribe and find your people.
Absolutely. I was going to say everything Marnina said, and basically it boils down to education and awareness. So, educating providers, the community, the political authorities, and the powers that be on the benefits of, that substance.
Okay. Our next question. Can you talk about national agenda needs versus local jurisdictional needs?
Well, I know we talked a little bit about sort of the state complementing the federal and sort of federal implementing uh, at the state level. Is there maybe we can rephrase the question a bit? In your practice, like, is there sort of a different lens folks have to put on when they're talking to jurisdictional like leaders, like city council folks, mayors? Is that very different from advocating at the state level? What's that like in terms of that difference for folks?
I think for this particular question, Jonathan, I think folks have to know who they're going to. Like, what is the need that you have? Um, who is the best suited to advocate for? You wouldn't go to expanding Ryan White Care Services to, let's just say, the mayor, because the mayor wouldn't have anything to do with expanding Ryan White Care Services in your area. So knowing who your audience is going to be extremely paramount to knowing what to advocate for. And so at the federal level, I would say those are the ways in which we're advocating for expanded access to like Ryan White Care Services. But when we're thinking about local and state officials and things like that, we're especially statewide, we're thinking about HIV decriminalization. Every state has its own HIV specific criminalization law, or they may not have one, or it may be repealed. And so you just have to make sure that you are doing your own research and thinking about what are the needs that you have and why are you advocating for it, and be able to find your champions in those areas that'll work alongside you to get what you want done.
Super great point. Yeah, understanding who you need to talk to, right, and what's appropriate. Absolutely. Tammy?
Yeah, thank you for that, Marnita. Absolutely right. And I would also add knowing who your legislator is, building that relationship with your legislator, signing up for their newsletter. So, we don't always have to travel to Washington, D.C. They take their breaks often, federal legislators, and they come back to the districts. So signing up for the newsletter and then visiting them while they are in district. And sometimes those meetings can be the most powerful if they are meeting you in district. So don't think that because you can't get to Washington, D.C., that your voice can't be heard. It's identifying when they're going to be there and knowing them, and also doing the research so that you can find where you have common ground. So knowing your legislator, like if they are a teacher or a lawyer or just, but also they all have a biography in on their site or whatever, but knowing who they are so you can find that common ground. There are some legislators that it's challenging to find where you can find that common ground, but you'll be surprised by knowing who they are and what their priorities are so that you can tap into that to hopefully get their support.
Awesome. So we're gonna have to leave it right there. But Marnina, Tammy, Ronald, Cecilia, thank you all so much. This is such a wonderful conversation. I had a lot of fun. You all are brilliant, and I hope everybody watching was able to gain something out of it. So everybody who's listening, check out PWN, the U.S. People Living with HIV Caucus, Zero Project, or Pitch, NAN. Get involved with these networks, these wonderful leaders. Thank you all so much. I'll talk soon. Bye, y'all.